You are Michael Hart, 984-593.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Hart, good morning. You are here today for a parole revocation hearing. It's been alleged you violated your parole with regards to Rule 7, criminal conduct. You are represented by counsel Ms. Rigney in this matter. Ms. Rigney, are you ready to proceed with this hearing today?
We can't hear you. You're off.
Yeah, you're on mute, Miss.
Sorry about that. Looks like all my witnesses are here. We are ready to proceed.
All right, thank you. Mr. Hart, if the board were to find you guilty of this allegation, we have a variety of options at our disposal, the most severe of which is keeping you until February 9th of 2034. Do you understand this?
Yes, sir.
You were mandatorily paroled on or about June 20th of 2019. A warrant was issued on August 12th, served on that same day. You waived a preliminary hearing on August 12th and pled not guilty to Rule 7. Due to the COVID-19 restrictions, you were not able to be seen within the 60 days normally allotted for your hearing. You were instead released on September 30th with an order to appear for your hearing on this date. I'm going to take a plea to this allegation. I'm going to read it to you. I'm going to take a plea of guilty or not guilty. Then I'm going to let your attorney have the floor. Okay, Mr. Hart?
Yes, sir.
With regards to Rule 7, on August 10th, it was reported to your agent that you had conspired with inmate Carl Reed to deliver controlled substances into a correctional facility. On that same date, a home visit was conducted of your residence. A search of your phone revealed that you were attempting to locate 100 Xanax tablets, a small amount of marijuana, and a large amount of cash was also discovered in your residence. As to that charge of violating your parole, do you plead guilty or not guilty?
Not guilty.
Okay. Ms. Rigney, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Good morning, Michael.
Good morning, Ms. Rigney.
Oh, you heard you were mandatory released last summer, July 2019, and you got employment right away. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am, I did.
And one of the places you were working was AER Logistics.
Yes, ma'am.
Were you full-time or part-time there?
Full-time.
And what's the nature of your employment?
I do dispatch as well as drive freight.
Okay, so you hold a CDL license?
Yes, ma'am, I do hold a CDL license.
You do, so you drive a truck?
Yes, ma'am.
And do you have a regular dedicated route with AER Logistics?
Yes, ma'am, I do.
Now, you mentioned dispatching. Can you briefly describe what that is?
Dispatching is helping drivers you find freight and you help drivers deliver that freight once you find it.
Okay, I'll expand on that in a minute. Let me direct you to the screen in front of you. Can you see it from where you are? Okay. I am displaying a multi-page document. Maybe you have reviewed it before. Do you recognize this? Do you recognize that letter?
I can't see it.
You can't see it? Can you not see a screen?
No.
Okay. You had a business. You work at AER, and you've worked there since last July, correct?
Yes.
And you had a business card. Excuse me. You submitted some pay stubs to me. Is that correct?
Yes.
And those stubs, they went from March through till the search.
Correct.
Okay. I totaled that for you. Does a total income during that period of $5,925 sound correct?
Yes. Okay.
Board, unfortunately, it does not sound like Mr. Hart can view the document. I would still offer it as proof of his ongoing employment and his income during March through June of this year, which we believe is a relevant time period.
We have those documents that you provided to us earlier, and we will omit them.
Okay, thank you. Now, Michael, you mentioned dispatching.
Correct.
And you seem to indicate will you repeat a brief description of what dispatching is?
It's you locating freight and also helping drivers deliver that freight.
So you're matching drivers and loads? Is that essentially what you're doing?
Yes, ma'am.
Are
Right.
you trying to coordinate pickups and drop-offs about the area that you drive?
Correct. Or the area that they located in.
They drive. Since we've mentioned that again, for the board, I guess I showed the note page that, Michael, there was a note page that was removed from their home. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And you've seen that note page, and it has dates, or it has a January date on it. It has the names Edwards and Steve and.
Right. Those were the names of drivers, and by the name, that's where they was located. Like I can't remember. I think Lamar was at Chandler, Arizona. Steve was in Dallas. By their name, that's where the destination that was in.
Well, where I'm going with this, was this a note scrap from you doing dispatching? Is that what this piece of paper is?
Yes, it came from my supervisor, and I just took notes from where he told me each driver was during that period.
Well, he was trying to train you to do this properly, right?
Correct.
Okay, so this is not a drug ledger in any way?
Oh, no.
All right, the next thing I want to talk to you about, we talked about AER Logistics. Do you have any other employment?
Yes, I also work for Innovative Solutions.
And I believe part of your business card with them was the prior employer. How did you get a phone from them?
Yes, I did.
Okay, so you admit that you had 2 phones on the day of the search?
That's correct.
But you'd only reported 1.
Yes, I did. I only reported 1 phone.
And the second phone, where did you get that?
I got it from Brad with Milton.
And that was for use in your employment with him?
Yes, ma'am.
Another item that has been brought to under suspicion is some cash that was recovered on the day of the search. There was approximately $5,000. How much of that was yours?
Like 2,500 about 2,500 of it.
And what was that for?
For an AC unit.
AC unit?
An air conditioning unit.
They call those HVAC.
Yes, ma'am.
That term familiar? Okay, and again, for the record, you cannot see what I'm showing the screen, but I guess for the record, I'm displaying a Paul's HVAC service invoice dated June 20th with a due date of June 21st.
Correct.
How is this related to that 2,500?
That's what it was gonna be used for. That cash was gonna be used for that AC unit, or HVAC unit.
Did you in fact use that money?
Yes, I did.
Okay. And again, board, I'll skip the display. There was a previously submitted item identified as HVAC for and we would submit those as proof that, or documentation that is actually going through with that purchase. No. Michael, you lost you?
I didn't hear you. I'm sorry.
Hello?
We can hear you.
Hello?
Can you hear us, Miss Rigney?
Okay. I'm afraid Mr. Hart can't.
I hear you now.
I can hear you, Mr. Charles. I can't hear anybody else.
Oh.
You can't hear Mr. Hart? Mr. Hart, could you
I
talk?
can't hear Mr. Hart. I got your hearing room, and then two.
I hear you. I hear you.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay, Mr. Hart, there was some text messages that have come up.
Okay.
And I've reviewed those with you. You acknowledged that you received some photographs of a substantial amount of marijuana, correct?
Yeah.
Who did you get that from?
There was a guy from Detroit, Michigan, that sent it to me.
Okay. Were you trying to buy marijuana?
No. You can see
Did you respond to him?
No, I never responded to him.
Okay. Did you was that a solicited message by you?
No.
Okay. Now, there were some additional text messages from an individual by the name of Tim Holmes. Do you know
Correct.
Tim?
Yes, I do.
And Tim's going to testify later, but he sent you a text stating something regarding 100 ladders, and then there was in March of last year. Did you respond to that?
No, I didn't.
And then in May, he also sent a message referencing white girls, which may be a drug term. Did you solicit that?
No.
Did you respond to that?
Not at all.
Now, come to find out, on the day of the search, there was marijuana inside that was recovered in your residence. Did you know about that marijuana being there?
No, I didn't.
Okay, that's all the questioning I have for Mr. Hart at the moment.
Mr. Hart, were you talking to Mr. Reed? Did you hear me?
What? I'm sorry. What?
Why are you having conversations with Mr. Reed?
Mr. Reed, it is my cousin.
Okay. Are you allowed to have conversations with people who are incarcerated while on parole?
It was never brought to my attention that it was never a parole condition of mine.
Which side of the family is Mr. Reed on?
He's on my father's side. Me and Mr. Reed, our grandmothers are sisters.
So what does white girls mean then?
I didn't send a message. I don't know what was in the term. I don't know what he was talking about.
What does hit a lick mean then?
I mean, hit a lick, it can vary, like, if you got employment that you was unexpected, that's hitting a lick. It's not, some people term it to be a robbery or whatever, but that's not any associations with that.
Okay, so what am I supposed to think in a reasonable reading of this text when you write, bro, I ain't gonna flex, I'm trying to hit a lick, I'm fucked up so bad, and I only got $50. What is a reasonable person supposed to... Okay, if you didn't send this one, then you sent the next one, which was the one about white girls. So which one did you send?
I would have to see it. I don't recall that. I really don't recall.
Did your attorney not go over these text messages that was given to her in advance of your hearing?
I didn't see that text.
I didn't ask you that. I asked you if your attorney went over these text messages that was given to her in advance of your hearing.
We went over the text message about the ladder. We didn't go over that. I didn't see that or know anything about this text.
No other questions. Any questions for Mr. Hart from the rest of the board?
You have any questions, Tom?
Any questions from Ms. Rigney on the board's questions?
I do. Michael, this number is 317-599-2016. Does that number belong to you?
No, not at all.
What about 317-745-7413? Does that number belong to you?
No.
And the number 317-999-6852, that number belongs to Timothy Holmes, correct?
Yes, it does.
Could you repeat
So again,
that?
the text message,
Could you
repeat that number?
Yes, please.
Yes, ma'am. 317-991-6852.
Thank you.
Is whose number?
Holmes. Mr. Holmes.
Timothy Holmes.
And the other numbers?
317-99, oh, that's the same one. 775, excuse me, 317-754-7413. These are the numbers that are on that text message you referenced.
Right. Mm-hmm.
That the assertion has been made that he sent those.
Okay.
And it is our position that he did not.
Okay, and what about
He did not send those, and he did not respond to them.
What about 402-2015?
I recognize that number.
Okay, whose number is that?
That was my employment number.
Okay, that was the second phone you had, correct?
That was yes, it is, sir.
Okay. Did you ever report that phone to your agent?
No, I didn't.
Why not?
Yeah.
I clearly forgot. There's no other excuses that I forgot to do it. I was going through, when I got that phone, I was going through a change of parole officers, and I had contacted Venatti, but Agent Venatti told me to talk to Mr. Chapman, and I didn't Chapman's number when I was doing that, and I was also going through trucking school, and I just completely forgot to report the phone.
And this
No,
was the
there-
phone that had the conversation about ladders on it, correct?
402, the 402 number, yes, it was, sir.
Okay, and this also had pictures of marijuana on it, correct?
I believe it did, sir.
And who was sending those?
That came from a guy that owns a dispensary in Michigan, Detroit, Michigan.
Why was the guy who owns a dispensary in Detroit, Michigan sending me pictures of marijuana?
He just was showing off. That's all he was. That's the only thing I can get out of it.
And he,
I didn't ask.
he was
I never.
using those on your business phone.
Yes, he did.
Mm-hmm. And how long did you have the business, when did you actually get that business phone?
I can't remember. It was I think it was in sometime in March. I can't recall.
So
I can't recall.
March of 2020.
Yes, ma'am.
And how many times do you think you saw your agent between March and when this went down? And
I seen one time we was only reporting over the phone because of due to the COVID.
mhm. So
And
between March and August, it never occurred to you to mention, I received a business phone that I'm now in possession of.
It was in June when when he found out I had it.
Okay, in June. So never in that time period did it occur to you to mention that?
No,
Between that March and June, you only had phone call conversations with the agent?
yes, it was fun. I may have had one other home visit. I may have had one other home. I can't recall. I think it was only one other home visit in that time.
And at points in time, you were calling your agent, correct? To
Yep.
connect with those. And which phone were you using in that situation?
693.
The
0701.
one that he knew you had.
Correct.
So you knew, evidently, you knew to use that one and not the business phone.
Well,
And yet you were able to have this showing off. All these other people had access to your business. So you can see why, for me, it might look like you were trying to hide something.
I can understand, but I wasn't. I just simply forgot. I'm not gonna make no excuses about what I forgot to do it.
Well, I just think it's interesting because I know, I have, people have business phones and personal phones, and
Mhm.
it's just interesting to me. Someone who is showing off would be calling putting this stuff on the business, and not just sending it to your personal phone. And I'm inclined to think it was because you were trying to hide that, but I'm just trying to be transparent with thoughts that, in my mind, that there's a deceitfulness that concerns me, but.
Any more questions from Mr. Hart from the board? Questions on those questions, Ms. Rigney?
No, thank you.
Your next witness, Ms. Rigney?
The next person I call LaTanya Clay. LaTanya,
Hello.
good morning. Can you hear us?
Yes.
Okay. Good morning.
Good morning.
And how do you know Michael? What's your relationship to him?
Michael is my fiance.
Okay. And you understand I am his lawyer and not your lawyer, correct?
Yes.
And as a matter of fact, I advise you to consult with your own attorney, correct?
Yes.
Okay. You're here voluntarily and you want to testify to the board, that's voluntary.
Yes.
Okay. The first thing I want to talk about is the marijuana that was recovered on the home search in June of this year. What do you know about that?
I just know it was in a spare bedroom that we use as a guest room and my primary dressing room that Michael has no access to.
Okay. Was that your marijuana?
Yes.
Do you have any reason to know that to believe that he knew it was there?
No reason at all.
I also want to talk to you about some cash that was removed from a nightstand. The board has been informed by the agents doing the search that about $5,000 was recovered, and in 2 different locations, 2 like nightstands. Michael has testified regarding the money that came out of his nightstand. What was the money that came out of your nightstand?
You said what? I'm sorry.
What was the money that came out of your nightstand? About how much was there and what was it for?
It was about $2,000 plus. I do banking for my grandmother who is in a nursing home and my mother who is handicapped. So I do their banking each month. And also, so I still have to go get money orders, so I have to withdraw cash from their bank account and do their money orders each month for their bills.
Is that what that money was for?
Yes.
Okay. Michael has also testified that in June you guys got a new HVAC system for your home. You remember that?
Yes. Yes.
Were you involved in the home warranty procuring of that service?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I'm going to have you look to your screen. I am displaying, go down in the email, Latanya_Clay@yahoo.com. Is that your email address?
Yes.
Okay, and this appears to be an email between you and T. Collins at a home warranty company.
Yes.
Okay. This was an email. This was a conversation dated May 22nd of this year. So was this purchase an ongoing thing for a few weeks, and this evidence of that conversation and that process?
Yes, it was. Yes.
This is a true, accurate copy of that communication. That's an accurate copy of the communication you had?
Yes, ma'am, yes.
Okay. Board, I would offer for your consideration this email communication between Ms. Clay and the home warranty company dated May 22nd of 2020.
We'll move those. For future reference, Ms. Rigney, we'll accept everything that you've submitted in advance. There's no need to lay a foundation.
Okay. I'll just explain them as we go.
Perfect.
Thank you very much. All right. I don't have any other questions for Ms. Clay.
So, Ms. Clay, could I ask a couple questions? That around there about $2,000. So if I asked you to get your grandmother and mother's bank account, I would see a record of you with the withdrawal of around that amount.
Yes, ma'am.
So if I asked you to submit that as evidence, you could do that for me.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And then, did Mr. Hart's agent know about your relationship?
I believe he did.
Did you ever meet the agent?
No, I never met the agent.
Okay. But you believe he knew you were living in that home?
Yes.
Yes? Okay.
Because when he was released, yes.
So, Mr. Hart, did your agent know about that relationship?
Yes, he was aware
And how do you know that?
because I told him. I let him know that she was pregnant. I had to let him know when LaTanya was having a baby that I had to stay the night in the hospital with her. So he knew about the relationship.
And that you shared a bedroom with her?
I shared a bedroom. Yes, not in the guest room. I've never went to the guest room. The master room. Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Any more questions for this witness? Ms. Rigney, any questions on
None.
questions? Your next witness?
None. Thank you. We call Brad Vermillion.
Hello?
Go ahead, Ms.
Hi.
Rigney.
Can you hear us?
Yeah.
Okay. Mr. Vermillion, how do you know Michael?
Met him in prison.
Okay. And what's your relationship with him now?
He owned a company, and he had done some work for us as an independent contractor.
I will direct you to your screen. You're a certified, sorry, board, it's old habits die hard, I guess. Mr. Vermillion, you're registered with the state of Indiana, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. Board, I submitted, and Mr. Vermillion, what is the name of your business?
Indie Innovative Solutions.
Okay. And board, I have submitted a printout from the Indiana State Registry for Business of his
We received that as well.
Innovative Solutions. So what are the responsibilities that Mr. Hart had when he would work for you, Mr. Vermillion?
General labor. He was responsible for general labor on the job sites, picking up equipment, materials, documentation. That's basically it. Just, kind of what we needed to do. Each job's different, so.
And at some point, did you provide a phone to him?
Correct.
And why did you do that?
We use a Microsoft suite, so information sharing for an app for our industry for work.
And when I asked you to testify here, did you review your business records regarding this phone?
I did.
And the number to the phone that you gave to Michael was 317-402-2015.
Correct.
And the date that you purchased that phone was February 21st of 2020. You mentioned that you had spent time in prison. Now you own your own business. Are you living the straight and narrow these days?
I'm sorry?
Are you living the straight and narrow these days?
Yeah. Yes.
If you believed Michael was using your business or your phone to commit crimes, would you continue to work with him?
No.
Do you think you'd be able to tell if Michael was doing things like that?
I would think I would assume that I would know. Yeah.
Okay. Did you have any suspicions like that?
No.
How was Michael as an employee?
Good.
I don't have any other questions for Mr. Vermillion.
Help me understand now, why is it that we have a phone for Michael?
Are you asking me?
Yes. Right.
We use Microsoft Suite and a construction application for our phone, so It's needed to have a smartphone and able to get to those apps, and then a lot of documentation sharing. So if we do a lot of like restoration work for insurance claims, a lot of times we'll do dry downs and we have to document a lot of existing damages, and it takes a lot of memory. So I provide phones in that case that we can, utilize that for our team of contractors.
And what did you say was his responsibility as a general laborer?
Just general labor, exactly that, just general labor of the job site, picking up equipment, delivering materials, physical labor, those kind of things.
So help me dot the I. How does that relate to needing to use this phone for this Microsoft?
So when we do a dry down when we do like an insurance claim, when we do a dry down process, the first step is the mitigation, and that's the part where we go in, bring all our equipment, and kind of do the demolition and set up for the equipment. And at that time, we have to document all of those steps and the humidity levels, and it's just a lot of information to have on one person's phone, so we use that in order to share that information. He goes in, he'll set up that information, that equipment, and then document that information and load it into our file.
Wouldn't a foreman do that? Do you have foremans on the job?
Yeah, they do that too, but they, that's just part of it. If he's going and getting it set up, our foreman is there at the job site. He's not getting the information getting the equipment from the stores. Our general labor is doing that.
Okay.
And setting it up. And then he will come and kind of, I guess, go over it with him as well too, and put that information in its right order once it's documented.
Okay, thank you.
You met Mr. Hart in prison?
Yes, sir.
And how long were you in prison?
About 5 years.
Okay. What were you sentenced for?
Voluntary manslaughter.
So when you were released, you were sentenced to probation or parole?
Neither. I got on a work release and then did house arrest through community corrections.
You never went out on parole after that?
Correct. Never.
How long have you been out?
Since 2012, I think.
10 maybe?
Yeah.
And this phone you have, do you have the ability to look into it and monitor it?
Some capabilities just through the app and its auditing process.
And did you ever do that?
But to extract data, probably, yeah. Or to check it, I guess, to see.
So you did or you did not?
I'm not sure. I don't know if I extracted the data or if he uploaded it. I don't remember.
Thank you. Any questions on those questions, board? Any questions on those questions, Ms. Rigney?
No, thank you.
Next witness.
I'll call Tim Holmes.
Thank you.
Mr. Holmes, you're on mute if you're trying to get in. Well, would you like me to... I'll move on to Mr. Rhea then, while we're waiting for Mr. Holmes to come back.
Okay.
Good morning, Mr. Rhea.
Good morning.
You employ Michael,
Yes,
and where do you employ him?
AUR Logistics.
Okay. And is that your business?
Yes.
Okay. And for the record, board, I submitted the Indiana State printout business details for this business. Mr. Rhea, what tasks, responsibilities, employment did Michael do for you?
He was driver and he was learning dispatching.
Okay, now when you say driver, you mean truck driver?
Truck driver, yes.
Okay, and briefly describe what dispatching is.
Dispatching is the arranging of trucks to pick up freight, to deliver freight.
How are you training him to do that?
Well, we have several mechanisms that we use to find freight, and one of the mechanisms that we use is called the load board. So he would review the load board and identify freight that paid good money, and identify freight, and once the freight is identified, assign it to a truck that can pick it up and deliver it.
Now, were you training him back in January, late January of this year?
Yes.
Okay. Scrap paper was recovered at a search at Michael's house. You've been shown that paper, and I am now displaying it on your screen. Do you see that?
Not yet.
You can't see it? Okay.
Well, no, I don't. I think it's coming up now.
Okay, well, we can talk about it because you know what I'm talking about. You remember you were shown a handwritten note that Michael wrote, right?
Okay, it's up.
Okay. And why don't you tell me what information resonates? What do you recognize on this scrap paper?
Well, one, it's hard to decipher the scrap paper because I don't know why the paper wouldn't be taken in as evidence, but from this picture, this is simply notes that Michael has taken based off my instructions, because he knows when I call, he needs to know these answers. So on the top it says Lamar. Lamar was in Chandler, Arizona. Mike needed to know exactly where Lamar was at when I called him and say, hey, where's Lamar at? Have you found Lamar Lowe? So he's taking notes so he knows when I call and I grill him about what's going on, because he's trying to learn, he needs to know. If you scroll down, you'll see Steve has 8. 8 is 8 hours. He's in Dallas. There's a DOT, a Department of Transportation rule where you can only drive a certain amount of hours a day. At this particular point, Steve had probably 8 hours. And I sent you notes that showed that on 123, where Steve Barker delivered freight in Dallas based off the BOL. If you scroll down a little bit further, you see Edward. It says 6 p.m. Edward and Ernest Terry were delivering the load, and I sent that BOL in as well.
Right. Well, and I want to say, so Steve, the notes you saw for Steve, did those relate to a real business transaction that you did?
Absolutely.
Okay. And now, did you use real business transactions as a way to test and train Michael?
Yes.
And is that what you were doing here?
Yes.
Okay. Do you believe that's what those notes are for? They make sense to you?
That's what those notes were for.
Okay. And now a new document should be on your screen now. Do you see the drive axle document? Is that up there?
Yes.
Okay. Explain for the board what you see here and why this is documentation of a real event.
Drive axle is a way of transmitting documents electronically. If a driver's on the road and we need to get the document, we use drive axle to take a picture, turn it into a PDF, and send it in. Each driver has a login where they can log in, take a picture, and send it in. The picture we're showing is where Stephen Barker delivered the freight, and he was in Hurst, Texas, and Hurst is near Dallas, and I teach, I train the dispatchers to always go to the largest population center when looking for freight. So this is a picture of a BOL that was completed by Stephen Barker.
Now, is Michael the first parolee that you have employed?
No.
Tell me about your prior experiences employing parolees.
Well, my prior experiences before Michael have been very well, and I feel like it's very good if a man has a good job, and it reduces the amount of recidivism. I had a very great experience before the parole experience with Michael.
So what's different now with, what trouble have you been having with Michael?
Well, one, the other experience is the parole officers allowed the drivers to be able to go to different states as long as I kept track of them, reported where they were at, which allowed the driver to make more money, which allowed the company to be more profitable. But for some reason, Michael was never allowed to leave the state. Another thing is Michael has a dedicated route, and instead of being able to work together, he just summarily gets called in to where he can't go to work. And when he has a dedicated route for just-in-time freight, major companies do not get their freight delivered on time, and that looks bad on everybody.
Is Michael a good employee for you?
Michael's a great employee.
Okay. Would you expand his employment if he got parole employment approval to do that?
Yes.
I don't have any additional questions for Mr. Bria.
Any questions for this witness? All right, thank you, sir.
Great, thank you. Mr. Holmes, are you there now?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, thank you. You guys ready for Mr. Holmes?
Yep.
All right. Mr. Holmes, state your first and last name for the board. Identify yourself.
Timothy Holmes.
What's your phone number, sir?
317-991-6852. 52-6852.
Okay. Now, were you listening earlier about some text messages?
Yes.
Okay. So let's talk about the latter's text messages. You sent Michael a text message that references 100 ladders. What do you have to say about that?
It was a typo. It was supposed to be 10.
What did you need 10 ladders for?
Because I was doing a construction job, and we needed ladders for residential housing we were doing.
Are you familiar that ladders is a term on the street used for drugs?
No, I never heard that.
There's another text message where you reference white girl. What's that about?
I had a white friend, or a girl, and she was helping me. Cause I have a brother and a friend that was in the music business, and me and Michael was trying to help him get it off the ground. I was telling him that.
Is Michael your dealer?
Friend,
Michael your dealer?
No, ma'am.
Have you ever bought drugs or used drugs with him?
No, ma'am.
You understand that doesn't sound very good, right?
Yes.
Okay. But you wanted to testify because you understand that those messages make Michael look really bad.
Yes.
Okay. That's all I have for Mr. Holmes.
Any questions for this witness? All right. Thank you, Mr. Holmes.
All right.
Anything else, Ms. Rigney?
I don't have any additional witnesses. I would have a brief comment.
Okay.
If you're ready for. Well, the Rule 7 conduct is criminal conduct. That's what we hear. And, it started out with Mr. Reed reaching out to Michael. There was not any significant response from Michael on that, but it led to the search at his home. And there they recovered a little bit of marijuana, the cash, and the second phone, those notes. And LaTanya Clay has come forward to take ownership of that marijuana. The notes that were submitted from the searching parolees indicated that it was outside of the area of the home, that it tended to indicate that maybe it wasn't Michael, but the notes were not clear. It was not very incriminating to Michael with regards to that marijuana. Regarding the money, we have submitted documentation that showed the ongoing purchase, a home warranty, and then ultimate purchase of the HVAC, which accounts for half of that money that was recovered. Again, Ms. Clay has come in and testified that the remaining funds were for helping her elderly family member. And she did, and I'll be frank with you, she offered to submit those bank statements. I did not ask for those or take them on her behalf because I thought it was more than what the board was expecting to see today, but we will absolutely produce those and can do that in short order if the board wants them. Regarding the second phone, Michael has taken ownership of that. He did not report that phone, but Mr. Vanillion has come forward and provided that phone for a legitimate purpose. And that he worked with Michael and he had no reason to think that there was anything suspicious going on there. Regarding the text messages of those phones, again, just like the Reed situation, Mr. Holmes reached out to Michael. Those were comments that were reached out to Michael. I believe if the officers would have found any kind of incriminating response by Michael, that's what would be in front of the board today. We wouldn't be talking about Tim Holmes' text messages. We'd be talking about Michael's text messages. And while these people may be doing suspicious and potentially incriminating things against them, Michael hasn't done anything to incriminate himself or indicate that he was participating in those things. When we get to the ledger, I don't know if you're aware of, if Mr. Charles Miller told you, I do have a background in law enforcement, specifically narcotics prosecution. And I recognize on first glance what the investigators are seeing in that note. However, it was very meaningful to me that Mr. Rhea could read that like a book and said, okay, this actually relates to a real thing, and was able to produce that. So I think there were on first glance some items that could be considered suspicious. But I think here today, when you get the full picture, you see that it's not what it appeared to be. Michael is working hard. He is a new father. He's a great employee. He wants to expand that employment, and he has not violated his parole here, and he wants to comply, and he wants to succeed. And we're here presenting that he did not, in fact, violate, and we hope that you find him not in violation.
So Ms. Rigney, let's talk about this. Let's ignore the ledger. Let's ignore a couple of other things, and let's focus on the fact that people keep involving Mr. Hart in the best case scenario to your client. Keep involving Mr. Hart in illegal activity or discussing things they shouldn't be discussing around him. We have Mr. Reed in the facility discussing that. We have another individual discussing things that at minimum sound shady. We have somebody with a marijuana dispensary in another state showing off. And then lo and behold, we come to the house and we find more evidence. And not only were you a narcotics prosecutor, you were quite a good one. So I knew when I read this that you knew how this looked. But in the best case scenario, your client's hanging out or texting or communicating with individuals who like to discuss things they shouldn't be discussing around someone on parole for murder. Right?
Yes, we cannot deny those contacts have occurred.
So, I mean, how am I supposed to just not chalk this up to just a bunch of coincidences? I mean, that's kind of what it's being presented as, that everything that looks bad is not really that bad.
Well, and I wouldn't go so far as coincidences. I would say maybe Michael has not been protective enough of himself. And I guess to flip it the other way, I don't want to say they're just a bunch of coincidences, but if there was more to it, wouldn't you have more? Okay, you've got like a start of an investigation. You got to start a basis to make the inquiry, I think. You take those next steps, the evidence doesn't back up what the initial impression is. And I think if he was doing these things, I think you would have found more evidence in those text messages. He's having these contacts, but there's no. I'm sorry, I had a glitch there. But there's no follow-up. There's no response from him. And I think if he was doing that, you would have been able to easily find that, or as investigators, the parole officer would have been able to produce that to you, but they didn't.
Any questions for Ms. Rigney or anything else any board member would like to add? Okay, we're going to go and deliberate. How would you want to handle this?
Well, we need the witnesses to come back to hear it. Yeah. Well,
Should be able to put them on mute and then mute your computer.
Not with WebEx.
not on my. Yeah, so Ms. Rigney, we'll need to have you leave, and then we'll ask you to join, and the rest to leave. And I can.
Witnesses?
Excuse me.
Oh, no, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, that was it.
Okay. Witnesses, go ahead and log out, and if you're not brought back for the verdict, I will call you later, okay?
Okay. All right.
Thank you very much.